I feel like, for the most part, it's fairly easy to understand. And I want to come back to staking eventually. But let's talk about, we've got the buy TitanX contract, which buys TitanX. We've got the Hyper buy and burn, which that goes and then buys up Hyper with that, with the TitanX that is bought by TitanX. And then you also have this thing called the Vortex. And there's a lot of, I would say, maybe you could say confusion too, speculation, uncertainty about what the Vortex is. Can you talk about what this is and why you developed it?
Yep. So let's start at the basics. One of the biggest FUD items in TitanX is what happens on day 280 when a bunch of supply comes out. What if you had a Vortex on TitanX that triggered on day 300? That had a bunch of saved up Ethereum to buy it. So the max miner length on Hyper is day 88. Max miner length on TitanX is day 280. Now, once day 88 hit, there's probably a bunch of people that started max miners at the launch, similar to TitanX. We don't have the Dune analytics yet. So on day 88, it will probably dump and then be bought back up with the buy and burn. Now, what if you had a buy and burn saved up for after day 88? That would take care of that max FUD event that was saved up from the start. That's basically the Vortex. So the Vortex stays 10% of TitanX bought on market and 8% of the Ethereum used to start miners. This builds up until day 98. Now, there's nuance to it because we like game theory here. Is the TitanX, after day 98, the TitanX gets put into the Hyper buy and burn, and then it buys and burns Hyper. So you have a saved up stash for after max cycle ends, which makes it more enticing for people to keep compounding even after we've hit day 88, which is going to be a big supply come out, it will recover, and then the game continues. But the Ethereum will not trigger on day 98. The Ethereum will trigger for the first time on day 196. Now, why day 196? And then it will do every 98 days after that.
And can I clarify one thing on that too? Is it day 196 of TitanX or 196 of Hyper?
Hyper.
It's day 196 of Hyper.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Now, here's why. Is the big FUD event in Hyper is day 280. So day 196, which is the second 98-day cycle, is September 19th, which just so happens to be the last day practically any TitanX supply comes out.
Interesting. Okay, so that's not playing to the to August. It's playing to when the supply is no longer really coming out in September. Interesting.
Correct.
Interesting. And
so we have this buy and burn saving up for when all the supply is in existence, pretty much.
Right. So, interesting. I have questions that I don't want to ask yet because I don't want us to go too far ahead too quickly. But let's talk about how this works. So at the moment, I don't see a purple button. I don't see anything going on here in terms of, a interval or an amount that will be able to be called. How does this work? How does this all get called for both the ETH and the TitanX front?
So the Ethereum that you see and the TitanX that you see is stuck inside of the smart contract, inside of a vault. And once day 98 hits, so the first day 98 will only be TitanX. Then day 196 is TitanX and Ethereum. And then after that, it's TitanX and Ethereum. Like, it's only for the first cycle that the Ethereum gets skipped. But when people trigger the payout cycle, the 98-day payout cycle, the Vortex gets triggered with it. And then the Ethereum and the TitanX get sent to the buy and burn smart contracts to refill them, and then they get used. So it's not like one big buy at the same time, because one, slippage would be too high. Two, it would be one big green candle and then one big red candle that would all be for nothing. So it will just inject back into the buy and burns, and then it will be used at the interval that the buy and burns are set at.
Gotcha. Okay, so if I'm hearing you correctly, this isn't like this. This is the furthest thing from a war chest that's just going to be, dumped onto the market. It's basically a timed smart contract that is going to just toss what it has built up within the Vortex into the buy TitanX. And I assume this is, correct me if I'm wrong here, I assume this is to protect, let's say for some reason the balances are getting drained here. This protects that scenario from still being able to function with a war chest of both ETH and TitanX in case for some reason there's not enough, or, I mean, that's probably not going to happen, but even if it did happen, I would assume it's just to protect the funds, right? So that way this war chest builds up on its own and then can be specifically catered to the situation that we're in come September. Is that right?
Correct. So in September, all of the TitanX supply is in existence. So when the buy and burn, the Vortex from Hyper starts triggering, there's almost no TitanX in existence. Build on TitanX protocol have burned a bunch. The TitanX buy and burn has burned a bunch. So maybe, hypothetically, we could moon at that point, and as we moon, we drag Hyper up with it, which makes miner ROI even better. Because if TitanX is a 3x, Hyper by default is a 3x, because it's its only liquidity pair. So there's like this whole... It's a lot of game theory. But if there's one thing we're good at, it's game theory. So the Vortex is awesome. I like it a lot. Hopefully people start to understand it.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot more sense, you know, now that you've explained it in terms of, you know, the why behind it and the specifics of the timing makes gives a lot more clarity around it. And I mean, I'm looking at the